In 1926, a former soldier and advertising man named George Clason published a thin book of parables set in ancient Babylon. He wrote it as a series of pamphlets, distributed for free by banks and insurance companies, disguising blunt financial advice as bedtime stories from a city that had been ruins for 2,000 years. He was not a banker. He was not a tycoon. He was a man approaching 60 who had watched too many of his neighbors mishandle their money. His little book, The Richest Man in Babylon, has now sold over 4 million copies. And almost every word he wrote about money in 1926 just kept getting more accurate. Here's what's strange about it. If you took a random person who declared bankruptcy last year, an athlete who blew through $40 million, a lottery winner now back on food stamps, a couple making $300,000 a year with a negative net worth, and you mapped their behavior onto Clason's parables, you would find every mistake described, in order, by characters who lived 4,000 years ago. The Babylonians did not just understand money, they understood you. They predicted exactly how you would go broke. And most people are following the script, line by line, without realizing it. Let me show you what they figured out, and why a book your grandfather might have read on the subway is still the most dangerous personal finance book on the shelf. Dangerous, because once you read it, you can't unsee what you are doing wrong. The book opens in a marketplace in Babylon, the wealthiest city in the ancient world. Two friends, Bansir and Kobbi, are sitting in the shade, complaining. Bansir is a chariot maker. Kobbi is a musician. Both are skilled. Both work hard. Both are perpetually broke. They look around the city and see fortunes being built around them. Merchants, traders, scribes. And they cannot understand why money flows towards some men and away from others. They are, in modern terms, exactly the people you scroll past on TikTok, complaining that the system is rigged. Then Bansir says something Clason wanted you to hear. He says he has decided to find their old friend Arkad, once a poor scribe just like them, now the richest man in Babylon, and ask him directly how he did it. And so begins the central question of the entire book. Why do some people, with no apparent advantage, accumulate wealth, while others with the same income, the same hours, the same skills, stay poor their entire lives? Arkad's answer is the part that makes modern financial advisors uncomfortable. He doesn't talk about hustle. He doesn't talk about side businesses. He doesn't talk about real estate or crypto or business ownership. He says something much smaller, much more boring, and much more devastating. He says, a part of all you earn is yours to keep. Now sit with that for a second. Because most people hear it and nod and move on. They think it's obvious. It isn't. The standard way most people handle money is this. Income comes in, expenses go out, and whatever is left over, if anything is left over, is yours. Arkad says that is backwards. He says the leftover is not yours. The leftover belongs to the grocer, the landlord, the camel merchant, the tax collector, and the brewer of date wine. The only money that is actually yours is the money you take off the top, before anyone else gets a chance to claim it, and refuse to spend. He told the young men of Babylon to save 10% of everything they earned, before paying any bill, before buying any robe, before settling any debt. 10% for yourself, first, always, no exceptions. And here is the thing. A 4,000-year-old idea, written down 100 years ago, by a man you've never heard of, perfectly describes the mechanism by which the majority of NFL players, by some estimates as many as 4 out of 5, find themselves in serious financial trouble within just a few years of retirement. They paid everyone else first, their friends, their family, the dealership, the jeweler, the mortgage broker selling them mansions in 3 states. There was never a part of it that was theirs. But Arkad doesn't stop there. The middle of the book lays out what Clason called the 7 cures for a lean purse. 7 rules for getting rich on a regular salary, in any era, in any economy. And every single one of them maps onto a modern bankruptcy with terrifying precision. The first cure is the one we just covered. Start thy purse to fattening. Save the 10%. The second cure is to control your expenditures. And Clason said something here that almost nobody quotes. He said that what most people call necessary expenses will always grow to equal their income, unless they protest. In other words, A raise will not make you richer, it will just expand the size of your life. Every modern study of lifestyle inflation says the exact same thing. People who go from making $50,000 to making $100,000 do not, on average, save more. They buy a nicer car, a bigger apartment, more takeout, and a slightly more expensive version of all the things they used to buy. The number on the paycheck changes, the bank balance does not. The third cure is to make your gold multiply. Don't just save it, put it to work. Arkad describes lending his savings to a shield maker who paid him interest every 4 months. Today, we call this investing in the stock market, or buying an index fund, or owning a piece of a business. The principle is identical. A coin that sits in a clay jar is a dead coin. A coin that is working, earning more coins, is the only kind of coin that actually builds wealth. Clason figured out compound interest a century before the average American figured out their 401k. The fourth cure, and this is where modern finance gets quiet, is to guard your treasure from loss. Arkad warns his students not to chase investments they don't understand. He tells a story about a young man who hands his savings to a brickmaker, of all people, because the brickmaker promised to travel overseas and buy rare jewels at a great profit. Of course, the brickmaker, who knew nothing about jewels, returned with a sack of worthless colored glass. The young man's savings were gone. And every time you read about a regular person who put their life savings into a meme stock they heard about on Reddit, or a cryptocurrency project endorsed by a celebrity, or a friend's startup pitched at a barbecue, you are reading a footnote to that exact parable. The fifth cure is to make your dwelling a profitable investment. Own where you live. Don't rent your life away. The sixth cure is to ensure a future income. Prepare for old age before old age arrives, the ancient version of a retirement account. And the seventh cure is to increase your ability to earn. Keep learning, keep getting more skilled, keep raising the ceiling of what you can charge for your time. 7 rules. Written in 1926. Set in a city that fell 3,000 years ago. And the entire personal finance industry is essentially still trying to translate them into language that modern people will actually follow. But the part of the book that I think is most quietly brutal is what Clason called the 5 laws of gold. Because the 7 cures tell you how to build wealth, the 5 laws tell you in detail how exactly you will lose it. The first law. Gold comes gladly to anyone who saves at least 1/10 of his earnings. Same rule. Said again, because Clason really wanted you to hear it. The second law. Gold labors diligently for the wise owner who finds it profitable employment. Money works when you put it to work. The third law. Gold clings to the protection of the cautious owner who invests it under the advice of men wise in its handling. Translation. Get good counsel. Don't trust your brother-in-law with the drop-shipping side hustle. The fourth law. Gold slips away from the man who invests in businesses with which he is not familiar. And the fifth law, and this one should be tattooed on the inside of every modern investor's eyelids. Gold flees the man who would force it to impossible earnings, who follows the alluring advice of tricksters and schemers, or who trusts it to his own inexperience. Read that last one again. Gold flees the man who would force it to impossible earnings. That is, in 11 words, the exact reason most retail traders lose money. They are not investing. They are trying to force money to grow faster than money grows. They are trying to 10x their account in a month. They are trying to time the bottom. They are buying lottery tickets dressed up as financial instruments. And Clason told them in 1926 that it doesn't work, and that it has never worked, in any century, in any market, in any city, because money doesn't behave that way. There is one more story in the book I want to leave you with. It's the story of Dabasir, the camel trader. Dabasir was once a wealthy man. He lost it all. He fell into debt. He became for a time a slave in another country, and he eventually returned to Babylon, owing money to a long list of creditors, with no possessions, no reputation, and no plan. What he did next is the part Clason wanted you to memorize. Dabasir sat down with a piece of clay and wrote out every single debt he owed. He listed every creditor by name. Then he made a plan. He committed to spend 70% of every coin he earned on living expenses. He committed to save 10% for himself, because Arkad's rule applied even to a broken man. And he committed the remaining 20% to paying down his debts, slowly, methodically, no matter how long it took. His friends laughed at him. His creditors pressured him to pay them faster. He held the line, and over time, years, every debt was paid, every creditor was satisfied, and Dabasir rebuilt his life. The clay tablets describing his plan were supposedly excavated in modern times and sent to a university in England. Clason makes a great show of presenting them as historical artifacts. They almost certainly aren't real, but the system on them is, and it works today, exactly as it worked in the fiction, exactly as it has worked for every person who has ever climbed out of debt by writing the numbers down and refusing to lie to themselves about them. So here is what is haunting about the richest man in Babylon. Clason was not a financial genius. He was not a banker. He was not even particularly rich. He was a man who, late in life, looked at the people around him and noticed that the ones building wealth were doing the exact same handful of things, and the ones losing wealth were also doing the exact same handful of things, and that those things had probably been the same since people first invented money. So he set the lessons in ancient Babylon, not because Babylon was special, but because he wanted the reader to understand that these rules are older than any of us, deeper than any market, and indifferent to any era. The chariot maker who can't figure out why he's broke, the young man handing his savings to the brickmaker, the young investor demanding impossible returns from his coins. They are all sitting in Babylon 4,000 years ago. They are also sitting in a studio apartment in 2026, refreshing their brokerage account, wondering where the money went. The book predicted you. It predicted me. It predicted everyone who has ever stared at a bank balance and wondered how it got that low. And the answer it gives: pay yourself first, control your expenses, make your money work, protect what you have, and never demand impossible returns, is so simple and so unflashy and so obviously correct that almost nobody actually does it. Which is exactly, of course, why it still works.